You're listening to the Talking Shit About Getting Rich podcast with expert shit talker, Coach Roel.
All right, Kurt, what's up? How are you doing?
Doing well. How about yourself? How was your week?
Yeah, the week was great. It's getting a little bit hectic, but also trying to just wind down this year 2022, which is funny. We should mention that segue. Mm-hmm. 2022.
Yep.
The proverbial year in review.
Oh.
What's top of mind for you? What are your fondest memories of 2022?
2022. It's funny that you asked that question. I met up with a mutual friend of ours, Rosa, about a week and a half ago, and we had an amazing discussion. And as like a life coach and personal mentor, she asked me for the past 3 years, what one word I would use to describe each year. So going back to 2020, 21, this year. And she also asked what I kind of see for next year as being that word. So for 2022, for me, it was definitely a year of growth. I think I did a lot of things personally, professionally, as an entrepreneur, that, you know, if you would have asked me even January 1 of 2022, I'd be like, there's no fucking way you're doing that. No, I'm not doing that. Hell no. But it's interesting. I think the very first thing I did, the company that I was working for at the start of the year, we had this like meeting with everybody, and the CEO was like, okay, everybody, what is your goal? Like, what's the one thing you want to, do this year? And mine was, okay, I want to appear on 4 webinars or like podcasts or something, because I was always the guy behind the scenes. Like, when we met, like, I was never at classes. I hated going to like, big trainings and, the networking. And so I was like, okay, I just want to be behind the computer by myself. I was a trader from 2009 to 2017, sitting in my basement by myself, watching charts. That's what I was used to. So I did, I think about 4 or 5 in the first like month of the year. And
4 or 5 webinars?
Webinars. We launched Logger and Listings podcast for with my real estate partners. So I was just putting myself out there. And I'm like, this is actually kind of fun. Now I see why people do it. So from that experience, though, what it showed me is that, just keep putting yourself out there. And that's the only way you can actually grow. You can't grow if you just keep doing the exact same thing you were doing yesterday. So what I do now is, if somebody has an idea or a thought, my immediate response used to be, well, no, I'm not doing that. Now it's, might feel like no, but I will at least think about it. And after I think about it and kind of write it down or journal through it, if it's a good idea at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, I might be a little scared to do it, but why not? What's the worst thing that could happen? So I think that's been 2022 for me. So a lot of personal growth and professional growth. Now working on several new businesses, really determined my investment strategy with looking for larger deals in the multifamily commercial space. Dating a wonderful woman. I don't know if we talk about relationships on this podcast, but dating an amazing woman. Yeah, dating an amazing woman that's really inspiring me. She's also an entrepreneur, has her own business. So yeah, just everything is being really good. Kids are good and playing their rep sports and getting to coach as well. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
That's great. So you kind of just, as an aside, started a bunch of businesses. It's like, come on, let's bring that back to the table. What businesses? Like, it sounds too casual. What are you defining as businesses that you started this year?
So businesses started this year. Obviously, we had the real estate investing, which was kind of before. So that's continuing. But like I said, so really, that's a
business. I want to make sure we talk about that. It's not just buying real estate. Hopefully, it's going to go up. Like you and I, we invest in real estate as a business.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is a business. Like you're doing full evaluation, you're looking at future projection, you're not buying and hoping. You're looking at it and saying, okay, this particular property or this investment or this portfolio I'm buying as a business. What are the income expenses? What's it going to take? What's it going to cost to run it, to manage it, bookkeeping on it, doing the taxes, like everything. And then how can I improve it? So I improve the value of this business. So maybe in 4 or 5 years, I can look to sell it or refinance it to pull money out. So it really is a different approach. And then also, it's not investing in the sense of, okay, I'm just going to be this, quiet person. No, we started a podcast, which is something else that we want to turn into an actual business that generates revenue. So working on that with ties in marketing the podcast, we're starting to bring on guests. We had randomly in, I think it was a few months, about 2 months ago.
Yeah, you had like a big name on there. Besides me.
Besides you. Besides you, we had somebody almost as famous as you, Coach Roel, on our podcast. And we had a couple people that kind of came through that, now it's not only about having them on the podcast, which has been awesome, but it's also creating relationships where I can, message them and they are, bigger names in real estate investing. So turning the podcast into a business. I've been working on deal analysis. I love Excel. So I've been working on my own kind of quick analysis, particularly for multifamily and also commercial. So looking at developing that into an app. So I'm just going through and tweaking that Excel spreadsheet. There's a developer that I'm going to reach out to through a mutual connection to develop that into an app. Myself and 2 other gentlemen have started a community called Thrive Community, which is helping investors, educating them on, how to invest in real estate. So every week we do like a deal analysis session, which we're doing tonight, actually, every Wednesday, where people can send deals, properties they're looking at, and we will go through and analyze, discuss them, ask them questions about it. So they have a better sense of whether or not they have a deal in front of them. Then we do sessions on Saturday. And eventually we're actually going to start offering education, possibly mentorship for people that, understand the value of what we provide for them at no cost, but do want more.
That's cool. So by my count, I have 3 businesses so far that you mentioned.
Yeah.
It's pretty darn cool.
Yep. And
then what else?
Then the most recent business is actually mentorship that I'm doing myself. And this was something I know that you'd mentioned to me before about consulting. And, I thought after the company I was working for, unfortunately, had to lay everybody off. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to do right now? So it gave me a chance to kind of reflect. And I thought, okay, I want to consult. And I thought it'd be on deal analysis, creating the app, do deal analysis consultation, which I still might do. But so I was kind of talking with my girlfriend about it, and she said, and I started to plan out everything and kind of outline what every day, what every week would look like, what my goals were in certain businesses, because I also coach kids basketball. Like my schedule is pretty hectic, so I have to be organized in order to accomplish everything. So she's like, why don't you do that for other people? I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to.
That's work.
That's work. So what I learned from early in the year, you don't say no. So I thought about it. I'm like, okay, this would definitely help people. And could I turn it into an actual business? So I started working through ideas and started writing, planning it out and putting numbers to it. And so now it is a business that just launched. On top of that, it also ties in with what my word is for 2023, which is to serve. So everything that I'm doing, yes, it is a business. The goal for it is to generate revenue, but everything is still tied to how do I serve people? How can I make their lives easier, better, more fulfilling, help make them more money? So what I'll be doing is life balance mentors, also business strategy. Like my girlfriend owns a dog walking business, and she's just going through rebranding. And I was sitting there working away, listening to Shark Tank, which you get a lot of crazy ideas when you are listening to this. And there was an episode with people that develop products for dogs. So then it hit me. I'm like, well, on your website, why don't you become an affiliate for products for dogs and cats that you support that are created by small business owners, maybe local. So now you have an additional revenue stream. You're providing value to your clients because now they don't need to hunt around for these products and services. You're also supporting small business owners. And on top of that, she wanted to donate a portion of the income that she generates to a charity for animals, like a humane society or whatever. And they said, well, instead of you taking money out of your business, which, that's your core revenue, maybe you take a portion of your affiliate money that you're generating. And now you have a passive income. All you have to do is put the link on your website, and you're done. And you're providing value, helping, and adding another revenue stream. So these are things that I will provide people that are entrepreneurs to kind of help them. And then another idea that Rosa came up with that we're going to start in January, I think January 13th, is we're going to start doing meetups. And this one's not really business. This is more, it's 100% of giving. So we're going to do meetups where we're going to charge a nominal fee, maybe $10, $20. And we're going to meet up and we're going to share, discuss, whether it be from my end, real estate investing, scheduling, balancing life, business strategy for herself, business strategy as well, helping people maybe personally and just sharing and networking. We're going to donate 100% of that to a charity. And then if we're doing it at a restaurant, we're also going to have the restaurant, we're going to ask them to also sponsor by giving maybe a few meals to that charity or homeless or something as well. So that, although it's not a business, it is something that we're going to still treat and run as a business because it needs structure, it needs marketing, it needs growth and everything like that, except we're just going to give everything away.
Wow. That's with your girlfriend?
No, that's with Rosa.
Oh, that's Rosa. Okay. Is there a brand or is there a title for it just yet?
Not yet. This idea was like a week ago. So I've been focusing on Life Balance Mentor and getting that up and running. So that is now out there. So that's kind of next. There's a couple other things on my list, but that will be one of the ones. And again, we're going to start that in mid-January. It's the first date. I think January 13th is the first meetup we're going to do.
Wow. That's a full 2022, man.
Yeah. And I coach. So this Saturday I'll be coaching basketball in North York, so about an hour away, all day Saturday.
And you're a coach. So Life Balance Mentor sounds very apropos for your brand, being the Life Balance Mentor.
Yes, and I also need to find time to publish my third poetry book.
Oh gosh, that's a whole other thing. You can't just drop that and not expect to expand on it. So you're a poet. And I didn't know it. Well, I didn't know it.
If you look behind me on the shelf beside the basketball, there are my poetry book. So that's
very cool.
Was the first one, and the second one just kind of slid down there, the shelf below.
So the third poetry book, that's for next year, though.
Yeah,
that's for next year. Okay.
So I think
I lost count. How many businesses or business activities that could turn into businesses was for 2022?
So 6.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So it does take obviously planning, scheduling, but all of them, they're connected in some way together, which is nice. Poetry is probably the only one that has nothing to do with anything else. It's more of just kind of a personal goal I set when I did the first one. 2020, I guess it was it 2020? Yeah, 2020, 2021, 2022. That I said my goal was to write enough poems every year that I could publish a little book.
But I love that. You touched upon something where you used to say no right off the bat. And then more recently, you're saying, well, maybe, without being a knee-jerk reaction. One of the things that I really like, one of my favorite conversation starters is when somebody says, wouldn't it be cool if? Wouldn't it be cool if? And then I'm like, yeah, what's the idea? Because that's in my experience, some of the greatest things have come out of those conversation starters. Wouldn't it be cool if fill in the blanks? Wouldn't it be cool if we start a podcast for your dog walking business? Wouldn't it be cool if we could have this new podcast, yet another podcast about making money, Yapam,
yes.
talking shit about getting rich? Wouldn't it be cool if we did something like that? Wouldn't it be cool if we just, on our Zoom calls, Kurt, wouldn't it be cool if we just hit record and recorded these weird, funny, sometimes insightful, sometimes ridiculous conversations?
It would be cool. I think it would be cool, and a good thing that you suggested, and now we're here. Now we're doing it.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily always, because I'm in kind of a different spot as well, where when you're in transition, however you want to define transition, relationship, personal, financially, otherwise, but for those who are watching or listening, it's if you don't know exactly where you're going, it's a great conversation starter, even if you're going to have that conversation with yourself. Like, sit there and think, wouldn't it be cool if? And I love it because it's the creative process. But then it kind of ebbs and flows as well, right? But thank you for asking how my 2022 went as well.
I was about to ask, how was your 2022?
Segue.
And I was going to add another question on after you answered.
Okay, cool. What's your two-part question?
So two-part question is, what do you see for yourself, your business in 2023? And the same question I guess Rose asked me is, what is the one word that would define both this year and then next year?
Oh, gosh. I don't know about one word, but I think for this year, at least 2022 in review is, if I choose one word, it was launch. I really launched in earnest my Coach Roel thing. And for years, it was a thing, right? Like, that once upon a time, I published a book, shameless plug, Undiscovered Riches, How to Find Your Hidden Wealth, available on Amazon. I published that, self-published it, like in 2016, I think. And I created this character, Coach Roel, just so that I had something to, when I was speaking at the front of the room, like, with the education company that we were both part of, you were kind of like my boss in a sense. I don't know if you ever think of it that way, but you helped determine what city I would fly to and whether I would actually be speaking on behalf of this education company. So for that, I'm eternally grateful that you allowed me to scratch that itch. And so I created that persona, Coach Roel, but never really did anything with it. Like, I published the book and had the .com, but never really did anything with it. And then coming down to Florida, 2017, figuring out our footing here, all that stuff up until mid last year, when I asked you to be on kind of like my advisory council, informal, like the Coach Roel Council, if you remember that, where I would just bounce ideas off of you and Liz, another good friend, was how I can formulate this thing. So January of this year, then was really when I launched it, like in earnest, with like a free webinar, then a paid workshop, and then offering additional mentoring and so on and so forth. So launch would be the word. And fortunately, it's crazy to think about it, but at risk of sounding like I'm bragging, I launched a 6-figure coaching business in 2022. And the students, the Snowbird Investor Club is the program underneath the umbrella of Coach Roel. I have almost 50% of them. I only have, and most of them actually came just 2 months ago. So the students that came in the first half of the year, they've all launched and they have properties of their own in Florida as Canadians. Awesome. So that's a huge badge of honor that I carry, that not only did I launch my coaching business to a 6-figure status and beyond, but I've also been able to duplicate somewhat of that success with the program that I've been promoting, which is helping Canadians launch a Florida property investing business remotely. And so that's pretty darn cool. So that's for launch for 2022. And going to as well, talking about a little bit how we were talking, wouldn't it be cool if? It's always good that when you're in transition to say yes more often than no, just so that you can start to explore things. I think at this point, 2023, it's the outlook for me personally, 2023 is to not say yes to everything. Not that I'm going to say no. I word that specifically is because I have one big project, which is learning how to raise capital in the private equity markets.
Okay.
Boy, does that sound kind of, I don't know, arrogant and snooty or something.
I wouldn't say arrogant and snooty at all, but it's just the reality of what you're doing. And, people that would think it's arrogant and snooty, and this might sound arrogant and snooty, are just haven't surrounded themselves with the right network of people. Because you say that to me, I'm like, okay, I know several people that, have done that already in the past few years, are in the process of doing it, where they're, raising multi-millions of dollars to invest in property. So when you say, I'm like, awesome, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. So was there a question of one word for next year, or
one word for next year?
End of next year?
No, one word for next year. Yeah.
The one word for next year is private equity capital raising. I don't know how to put that in one word.
Capital.
Capital. Yeah, there you go. Good. Thank you. That's why we have this buddy coaching, right? Capital.
So what were the challenges that you faced? Because again, launching something isn't easy. It takes a lot of work behind the scenes. I think for anybody that hasn't started a business or launched a product or service, they probably don't appreciate how much happens behind the scenes, how much time goes in, the thought process, getting your offer right, getting your marketing in place, social media. So as you're going through it and launching, what were some of the challenges that you faced? And was there anything that you found almost made you possibly stop or quit throughout the year?
Yes. I actually did a soft launch in June of 2021. You were on there. It was the Florida Property Funding Blueprint, which I then recorded and turned that into a digital intellectual property, digital IP. So it's a course that's available for purchase. And that was my soft launch. But then from June of last year to the end of the year into January of 2022, it was a lot of trying to figure things out. So to your question, I would say people, if you're thinking about launching a new business activity, is talk about it. Bounce it off of anyone and everyone who will give you the time of day. Your closest friends and family, as long as they're going to be supportive. That would definitely be a criteria first. You don't want to go to someone who is usually negative, but go to people who are supportive, but would also give you sort of the real thoughts on that. Me personally, and actually this is something I wanted to chat with you about, which is great to be bringing it onto this platform, is you just launched or in the process of soft launching Life Balance Mentor. And then I just launched or relaunched Coach Roel / Snowbird Investor. So when I was going through how am I going to position this and what am I going to do? Because none of it existed, right? As you know, I was kind of workshopping it through my head and asking people their opinion and stuff. But I always knew I wanted to go the route of hyper niche. I wanted to create almost like creating a market of one, where I had no competition. I was a big fan of that concept. I'm like, sitting there in my room thinking, what could I possibly offer out there that is totally unique that nobody else is doing? So long story short, on that train of thought, at least, was what I came up with: teaching Canadians how to launch a Florida property investing business. It's like, how hyper niche is that? It's like, I don't think there's anybody else out there. Yes, you could just easily call up or Google a real estate agent in Florida from Canada and say, hey, I want to buy a property. Bada boom, bada bing, you can get a property. But they're not going to help you launch a business. They'll help you buy a property, but launching a business, no. How am I credible to be able to claim that I can help others? I mean, I've done it. This is going back to the beginning of this year. I did it myself, and it was all about proving to myself that I could duplicate that same success with other people, which I'm happy to report. I've been able to do it with almost 50% of my clients so far. The other 60% or so, they just started like less than 3 months ago. So they'll be launching in the beginning part of next year. The way I see yours, and this is just my opinion, but in the theme of buddy coaching, is Life Balance Mentor is a little bit more broad. Mm-hmm. But you still need, and we were talking about this the other day too, I believe you still need to have a uniqueness that nobody can compete with you on. And I put forth, and I'll say it again, that your uniqueness is Kurt motherfucking Warner. Nobody else can be the Kurt Warner that you are. Right?
It's like you and my girlfriend have like each other's numbers. You're like, hey, I said this to Kurt. Can you say this to him as well? So here's because she was saying the same thing today as I was sending her some stuff that I was putting out there. It's like, yeah, you really need to push you as that unique offer. I'm like, fuck, he's right. Yeah. And
I'm going to text her right now. It's like, yeah, you just mentioned that good stuff.
And you're absolutely right. Like, I don't know. I think you also listen to Alex Hormozy, who's phenomenal, by the way, although our podcast you should listen to.
I'm looking at his book right now. It's right in front of me there.
Like he says, the riches are in the niches, right? So niching down does allow you to actually charge more. And I love the analogy that he gave that relates definitely to your business because, you know, there might be a couple companies or individuals in the US that teach Canadians how to invest in the US. Very broad, right? Then there might be, you know, people that teach you how to start a business investing in the US. Again, still broad, but a little tighter. When you get down to invest, start a business, focus short-term rental, snowbird lifestyle, like Florida, it's and even a little bit more niche, I think, is the fact that you're in and around. How far outside of Orlando typically are you talking about?
For investing?
Yeah.
Probably about actually, what do you mean? Like in terms of where we invest is all. I know where you Florida.
Guys, but like when you're talking to, you know, like your students and people that you're working with, like you do your trainings outside of Orlando or in Orlando. So my assumption would be for them, they probably, because they're in the area, they start looking there. That's kind of drivable, right? So even though you're not promoting it, you're talking about all of Florida, you probably have a lot of people that are looking probably closer to where you are, at least for their first one before really stepping outside.
Yes, actually, I do have my bias in Central Florida because one of the most recent factors is hurricanes. I remember before coming down to Florida, it's like, oh, but Florida has hurricanes. Aren't you afraid of that? So I did a bit of research. I looked it up on Wikipedia, and the reality is not many full-fledged hurricanes actually hit Florida. By the time that weather system reaches Florida, it's usually been downgraded to a tropical storm, which is exactly what happened just a few months ago with Hurricane Ian. By the time it brushed past Orlando, it was already downgraded to a tropical storm.
Yeah. And
so it's the outlying areas, the coastal regions that really unfortunately got hit hard. So that's my bias. Logically, that was a intentional decision because I was thinking Tampa, economic wise, in terms of the fundamentals, Tampa is much stronger than Orlando in terms of job growth, working age, population growth. Tampa it's a lot more diverse. It's not dependent on tourism so much. It's got a diverse economy. So it's Tampa or Orlando. But then Tampa's on the coast.
Yeah.
Orlando's nice in the middle, and it's also drivable to all the other places. So that's my bias. Having said that, though, I do have a student currently that we're working together to launch her business with her first property being down in Holiday, Florida, around Boca Raton, north of Fort Lauderdale, sort of South Florida, that area. And that's great. So that's where she wants to be. But the good thing is that the principles all work for all of the above. So then I just said, forewarning, you know, we do have, Florida is Florida. So you might want to make sure that if you're getting a single family detached home, that you check the flood elevation, that there's good drainage in case there's just heavy rains and little winds. Drainage is a big issue. But by and large, once you're in Florida, once you have a foothold, then the rest of the state is really your playground. Or even other states, you could still go to other Sunbelt states along the south of the US as well. So it's just really, your first one is not going to be your forever home, and it's not going to be your last property, but it's just that breaking the ice, getting across the border, having a foothold. That's what I'm very proud to have been able to do or help people do this year.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I don't think you give yourself enough credit, for, one, your story alone of the journey to go from Canada to Florida, because you didn't have what you're providing people. You didn't have a blueprint. You didn't have somebody saying, Roel, you need to do this and this and this. And not only am I going to tell you what you need to do, but I'm going to help you do it to make sure you get set up, everything right. So you had to learn the hard way over time. And it's awesome that you're now providing that to other Canadians that want to, maybe they don't want to move like you did to Florida, but they do want to establish a base there that they can spend, several months a year there, or maybe a week or 2 weeks a year, whatever their, life circumstances are, and generate income from it, and then start building that as a business. So that's awesome.
And having other people essentially effectively pay for that.
Exactly.
But, thanks for the props. But we're close to finishing out end of time. So we need to, one of the things that we normally do here is we make each episode the making of, or the titling of. So what are your thoughts, Mr. Werner, as to what we could call this episode?
It's really a challenge to do this. Like when you mentioned this as an idea, I'm like, oh, this is going to be easy. So easy to title it. But because everything that we're talking about is unscripted, it's like, okay, well, we talked about that. We talked about that. We talked about that.
Well, let me fill in a little bit while you let that marinate. We talked about 2022 and the year in review. One word that described that. And then we talked about launching businesses on your side, growth. What do you think? Is there anything there?
I'm thinking the words grow and launch in there, because those were two really powerful things. Because although
how about launch and grow?
Launch and grow?
Because usually isn't that usually how it goes? You launch and then grow, or do you grow first and then you launch? That's kind of debatable.
You could grow as a person before you launch something. If you had to grow as a coach, mentor, trainer, investor before you could launch. I had to grow, in order to launch any of, real estate or life balance mentor or anything. Like I had to do a lot of personal growth. So how about grow and launch?
Love it. Done. Stamped it. Double locked it. No changes.
Sounds good. I feel like we're 5.
All right, man. So thanks for your time this week too. And, till next time. So this episode, grow and launch.
Awesome. Have a good one, Roel.
You too.